Hello and welcome to the Biohack Her podcast. I'm Azra Aligic, your host and founder of Biohack Her. I'm a health and wellness journalist, writer, corporate consultant, a biohacking advocate and practitioner, and I'm studying to be a health coach with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Biohack Her is a space where we can explore ways to optimize our health to live well longer. Whether it's through nutrition, exercise, cryotherapy, supplementation, technology, and more, I'll be bringing you information and interviews on understanding how biohacks can help you prevent disease, slow down, or even reverse the aging process by taking control of your unique bio-individuality. Want to know more? Let's start turning back the clock. Today I chat to Amanda Snee, founder and owner of Nature's Army, a 100% natural cleaning service. Amanda's story is one that is becoming unfortunately common. Some years ago, she suddenly developed autoimmune symptoms and became unwell, and was able to identify the source of her illness as being the toxic cleaning products she had been using for years. Many of us have grown up being taught by a generation of parents who, through no fault of their own, believe that the only way to get something really clean is to use bleach or other products that contain bleach. We trusted the companies that made these products without really realizing how harmful they are. Amanda and I kick off by chatting about her childhood and earlier careers, which contributed to her health journey, and she shares with us the process she went through to heal herself. Research has shown that autoimmune issues start years before the body actually becomes symptomatic. When symptoms start, it's the body's way of trying to fight the inflammatory cytokines caused by your immune system due to toxic levels of elements like lead, iron, or mercury. We now know that chronic inflammation is the root of the majority of chronic diseases, which is why it's so important to understand how our environment, including the products we use in our house or in our bodies, contribute to toxicity. What I found most inspiring about Amanda's story was how she took something negative, that being her illness, and turned it into something positive by creating Nature's Army to ensure other families had safer, non-toxic options for a cleaner home. Along the way, she has also educated other women to come on her journey and is a wonderful example of how one person can make a difference to others. A strong battler of a woman on a mission to help us keep our homes clean naturally. I hope you enjoy her story and also take inspiration from Amanda to start to make changes in your home to keep you and your family safe and healthy. Let's jump into it. Hi, Amanda, and welcome to the Biohack Her podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, Azra. It's a pleasure to be here.
For those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you did before setting up Nature's Army?
Yes, well, by my accent, you can obviously tell that I'm from England, from a small town called Mirfield in Yorkshire. I worked in sales predominantly from being later in my teens, but when I left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had no ambition, and coming from a working class family, all I wanted to do was go out and earn money. So for the first couple of years after leaving school, I went into what most people did in my small town. I went into a factory and started to pack quilts, which wasn't a very glamorous job. And after 2 years of working shifts at a very young age, I decided that it wasn't for me. So I decided to head off to London to what I thought was where everything would happen and I would suddenly become a different person and find the career that I'd always wanted to do. My father lived in London because when I was younger, my parents split up. So he went to live in London and had his own business there. So when I arrived, I rocked up, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Dad, here I am." And he said, "Okay, so what are you going to do?" "I have no idea." "What do you think?" I said, "Well, to be honest, I think you should do something where you can get into a lot of different companies, seeing as you don't know what you want to do with your life." So we decided between us, well, I decided I wanted to be a beautician, and he decided no. It was going to be a secretarial course or nothing. So I went into a secretarial course at Pitman's College in London with no idea of typing, no idea of shorthand. And to be quite honest, I was pretty useless. But I muddled through, and eventually I got the hang of it. I got some shorthand behind me, and I managed to do a little bit of typing, which enabled me to get into a company in Leeds, which in my town was a big city, Leeds, which is only about 10 miles away, but it was like the big smoke of Murfield where I came from. So I started there in a building company selling bricks. So that was the start of my sales career. I started on the typing and they decided that I was pretty useless, but heard me on the telephone and thought that, hey, there may be something there. She can talk. So let's put her in sales. So I started my sales career selling bricks, which wasn't very glamorous. So from that, I decided to move into the wines and spirits and went to work for Tetley's selling wines and spirits, which I did for about 4 years, and I loved that. But then they sold the company and things changed, so I decided to move on. Met my husband through sales and we talked on the phone, didn't meet for a long time, but had kind of a relationship over the telephone. And when we met one day, it wasn't quite as we thought, love at first sight. He was tall and a little bit spotty, and he thought I was a small and a little bit chubby. So, yeah, we didn't quite hit it off that first day. But we carried on talking on the phone, and things, as I suppose people say, love is blind. And he suddenly became some kind of Greek god, and I became his beautiful princess, I suppose. So we got together and we decided to build a business together and go back into what we were both into, the building trade. And we went ahead and forged a business in a landscaping and building company with a couple of friends. Mike did all the sales on the bricks and things like that. And I actually helped out the builders with styling homes and the show homes, which was great. And for 8 years, we did that happily until the GFC hit in England and literally took away everything we'd built. We were 43 years old. We lost our home. We lost our cars. I was selling our clothes on car boot sales. And so basically, we were just completely bust.
Must have been so stressful.
It was like the end of the world, like
Mm.
the end of the world that day. Yeah. So things became very difficult and very stressful.
Yeah. And then at a point in your life, you started to experience some serious health issues, which took you on a journey of being what I like to call a toxic environment warrior. Walk us through what happened when you first started to feel unwell, or when you thought you first started to feel unwell.
Well, when we went through the GFC, we came to Australia to build a new life. And at first, for the first couple of years, everything was great. Although we were still building our lives up, we had some great friends to back us who put us up. I began cleaning for some friends and doing some nannying. And I started working for a strata company in the city, in Sydney, and became quite popular as a cleaner there. And everybody who I cleaned for said, "Oh, we want Amanda back." So I began to build up quite a large portfolio of clients. They were quite high end clients. And with it being my first new venture on my own in Sydney, I had to make sure that everything was perfect. So I used a lot of chemicals, a lot of bleach, a lot of toxic cleaning chemicals, multi surface sprays, which was fine for the first couple of years. But after, I think, the second year, one morning I woke up to go to work and I just looked in the mirror and I was completely covered in hives. My face had swollen up, my eyes began to close up. I couldn't go to work. I looked so horrific. In fact, when I went to the doctors, I had to put like a hoodie over my head because I looked horrific. So I went into the doctors and they just went, "Wow, what's happened? What have you been in contact with? What have you eaten?" I said, "I really don't know. I haven't eaten anything different that I know of because my diet's pretty simple. Just the cleaning, and that's all I could put it down to." So we went for tests, blood tests, allergy tests, but nothing came up from it. They couldn't explain what had happened. And then 2 weeks later, it happened again. Went back to the doctors. They just gave me some drugs, obviously, to take away the swelling. And then 3 months after, it happened again. So it became quite scary, really. And I thought, I have to get to the root of this. Something's wrong. The doctors don't know what it is. And so I heard about a guy called Mark Newman through a friend who was doing some tests, trials on how he could cure unexplained things through food and diet and natural remedies. In between this, when I had my last blood test, it came out that I had extremely high levels of iron in my blood. And at first, they thought I had hemochromatosis because the levels were so high. Turned out in the end I didn't, but again, no explanation of why this was happening.
So for those that don't know, what's hemochromatosis?
Hemochromatosis is very high levels of iron, which are unexplained in the blood. It's an hereditary disease. It can't be cured, but it can actually kill you because it's very toxic. Too much iron in your body is toxic, and it can break down your liver and your internal organs. So it's extremely dangerous. So even having high levels of any iron in your body is toxic to the body. So I wrote to Mark, and he was only taking so many people on his trial. But when I told him about, obviously, my hives and my iron, he was really interested and said, look, I think I can help you. I think your body is just over toxic. And what we need to do is get the levels down and start all over again. So I was very lucky to get on one of Mark's trials. And to be quite honest, it completely changed my life.
So what was Mark's background? Is he a naturopath or?
Mark's background is not a naturopath. No, he's got no naturopathy in him, but he's grown up with a family who are very health conscious, and he studied the benefits of fruits and veggies and herbs, and he studied that for about 20 years, and then eventually he came up with his own lifestyle juices called Raw Energy. And he did very well with it in Sydney. A lot of people went to him, and he did cure a lot of ailments through this remedies that he did.
Yeah, so looking back now, do you think that the hives were actually the very first symptom, or retrospectively, do you think that there were actually other signs that may have been present that you may not have realised were actually symptoms?
Well, I think looking back at my medical history, I have never been able to have children. And through research, looking at toxic chemicals, it began to come clear to me, looking at my own background in health, that something maybe had been growing within me for a long time. Unexplained things, not being able to have children, the hives, the high levels of zinc and, iron. I don't know how long my body had been in this state. So yeah, looking back, I think I've been in a very toxic state for a long time.
Yeah, it's not uncommon, is it?
No.
So in terms of your toxicity, what did you end up identifying was the source of contributing to developing those symptoms and inevitably your autoimmune issues?
Definitely the high levels of toxic chemicals that I was using on a daily basis, ingesting through my skin, breathing it in, inhaling, and mixing these chemicals together as well, which is also a lethal cocktail. Not just using one, but when you mix two together, especially with bleach, then yeah, you're onto some pretty toxic stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think we realise, do we? We I don't know about you, but I was brought up by a mother who was a bit of a clean freak, and I've become a clean freak as well. And I also had used those sorts of chemicals for many, many years. And, unbeknownst to me, didn't realise that, it was causing the toxicity in my body. And I ended up with high levels of mercury in my body.
Wow.
And I'm like, where on earth did mercury come from? How did I get mercury in my body? And it was only recently that I've identified that it's through products like bleach and Domestos and those sorts of really strong. And of course, I never wore any gloves or anything like that.
No.
So I don't know whether that whether it's you found a sort of a similar experience in terms of your upbringing. What was your upbringing like, and did that contribute to how I suppose you approached life in terms of health and so on? And I suppose when we're all younger, we tend to feel that we're invincible and I'll be right sort of kind of approach.
Yeah, my upbringing was very different. I grew up with my grandparents. My mum and dad split up very young, And I grew up with my grandparents. I'm a single parent. My mum couldn't look after both of us, so my grandparents looked after me. And my gran was, I swear to this day, she was a white witch. She was very advanced. She always drank lemon water on a morning and on an evening. She knew about rose hips. We had rose hip syrup, brewer's yeast. But then in those days, I just thought, oh, this is really weird. I mean, the media is a powerful tool, and what I was growing up with in the media was clean is bleach, like you, clean is Dettol. Cleaning with vinegar and lemons was just, well, it was just crazy. At first, it seemed normal, but as you grow older, you get your own home. Then I thought, there's no way I'm doing lemons and vinegar. Stupid. So I think in my journey, I've actually ended up going back to basics and thinking, wow, why didn't I listen to you in the first place, Fran, you know?
Mm. So in terms of your health journey then, once you were diagnosed and you identified what was causing your hives and other symptoms, how did you go about getting healthier again? How did you go about clearing that toxicity out of your body?
It took a long time. I went on, obviously, Mark's program for 4 weeks, which was all about cutting out gluten, alcohol, caffeine, meat, dairy. It was really, really strict, but I knew I had to do that to give my body a chance to heal and just to get rid of any toxins that were in my body. I mean, because it's the dose that really is causes the damage, and I didn't know how much dose was in my. So I went back to basics. I took the juices for 4 weeks and then decided I had to make a lifestyle of it. When I went to have my blood test, my iron was perfect. I've never had an outbreak of hives again. So I decided this has got to be my new life. No more products, no more chemical products. And I just thought, well, how can I go ahead and do the business and my livelihood that I do without chemicals? And when I started 13 years ago cleaning, eco products weren't really around. People weren't interested. It wasn't trendy. People weren't really interested in what was happening in the environment and definitely weren't interested in not putting bleach down the toilet. So it was very difficult and very difficult to find out things on the internet about how to make your own cleaning products. So it was a lot of chemical moments in the kitchen and seeing what worked and trying to go back to what my gran taught me and speaking to a lot of older ladies and a lot of grandparents and people who were into eco, then trying to source these people on the internet and chat to them and get their help. And I was very lucky that I got to talk to a lot of interesting people and got a lot of advice and just started making up my own little potions and testing and eventually found out what worked.
And so you set up Nature's Army, which is a 100% natural house cleaning service, and you're just outlining that you sort of experimented with different types of cleaning products. And where did you land in terms of those cleaning products? What has worked for our listeners out there? What are the types of things that they can turn to instead of bleach and some of those harsher chemicals that are so toxic to us?
You've got to go right back to basics. Baking soda, bicarb, white vinegar, essential oils, which are really popular now, and just a lot of just natural things, anything you can find. You can clean with a lot of things that you don't even think about. As again, it's distilled water. You don't need any chemicals. People think chemicals are clean, but chemicals are toxic. You've got to think yourself, what's clean? If you've got a baby and you put in toxic surface cleaners on surfaces and you put in toxic floor cleaning products on the floor, that's not clean.
No.
It's all about people really thinking about what clean really is.
How did you go with your customers in getting them to transition over to, these natural products, a natural way of cleaning? Because there would be, some, like probably how I was some years ago, I would have been very resistant to that concept. I would have been of the view, no, that's not clean. You can't just be using vinegar to clean. No, we've got to get bleach in there and that's going to get rid of all the germs. And, that's how I was brought up. So that was my mindset at the time. I know better now, obviously. But certain that there are other people out there over the years that you've come across that had a similar mindset or view.
Yeah, I did a lot of surveys with my clients, and I tried to get to pinpoint what people actually think clean is. And I found that clean is, to a lot of people, more than what you see. It's actually what you smell. So why people love bleach so much is, like you said, you remember it from being younger, and that smell of being clean. So through a lot of talking and to different people and finding out that this smell was what they really thought was clean, I decided to make my products, but to make my products really smell clean, but not in a bleach type way, an essential oil way of things about Australia, tea tree, lemon myrtle, eucalyptus. And when I put these products in front of my clients and I actually let them smell them, they would go, whoa, that smells so clean. Is my house going to smell like that? I said, yes. And they say, is it going to kill germs? Is it going to be clean? And I said, well, clean is when it smells good, when you know you've used natural products, when it looks clean. And these products, these actually do kill germs. But what you're doing when you're using a product that's a chemical product, yes, it's killing germs, but it's leaving a whole residue of chemicals all over your house.
Yeah.
And then that started to process that. And once they actually saw the effects of the house being cleaned with natural products, they loved it.
Fantastic. So what other changes have you made in your life? I mean, if we go back to, I suppose the dietary changes that you made to be able to heal yourself. I mean, you mentioned that you were doing juices for, what was it, 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Were you just on the juices for the 4 weeks and that was all? Were you eating anything else at that time? Was it just a complete deep cleanse at the time, or?
It was a complete decleanse for the first week. And then after the first week, we started to introduce things that fell from the tree, fruits mainly. Then after the second week, we introduced a little bit more foods that I liked. I'm no saint. I try, but we're all human. I like chocolate as well.
Yeah.
I like wine. I like coffee. So it was just a case of introducing things slowly, but trying to make sure that we introduced things that were more natural, more organic. So switching to an organic coffee, having decaf, switching to a chemical-free wine, and looking at what was actually in the food that we were eating, and finding out that, looking at what a label and thinking you're just having, say, a piece of nice tasty cake, but then looking at what's actually in it. Some things you can't even pronounce, which aren't even food, they're chemicals.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And how did it make you feel when you finally were symptom free? How did you feel at that point in time when you realized that you tackled this and you were over it?
I felt like a new woman. I felt fitter. I woke up without a brain fog. Each day, I just felt stronger. And I started running again and getting fit. And just my life just changed. I wanted to eat healthier. I didn't want toxins in my life. When I smelt bleach, it made me feel sick. And so things changed quite quickly. And I never looked back. I wouldn't want to go back.
How awesome. What are some tips that you can give our listeners in terms of eliminating toxins in their household? What's the best way to go about it in terms of transitioning that out? Because people spend a lot of money on some of these toxic products, unfortunately. What is the best way to approach that, to get a cleaner sort of approach in the house?
Slowly.
Yeah.
Do it slowly. Slowly, and you won't fail. Just take baby steps. Empty under your cupboard and just look at the amount of things you've got. To clean a house, you need a product that's going to clean your surfaces, you need something for the floors, and you need something that's going to scour. Basically, that's all you need. If you look at under your, you'll have like 10 maybe. Some people have 10 different products under there. 4 to do a surface clean, 3 to clean the floor, different bleachers, different toilet products. So have a look at them and just realize that you don't need all these. You need one product for each thing. That's all. And then think about, the most important thing is how you're going to get rid of these products out of your life. You can't pour them down the sink. You can't pour them down the toilet. You need to find your council clean-up day when they're going to take away the chemicals or when you can drop them off, because people think, oh, great, I'm going to clear everything out, and they pour it down the sink or they pour it down the toilet. So that's a big thing to think about, how also you're going to declutter these products and what you're going to do with them firstly.
Awesome. All right. So how can people get in touch with you if they're wanting to reach out to learn a bit more or even to use your Nature's Army cleaning service?
I'm happy to answer any emails. So we've got an email address, we've got a website, we have a Facebook page and an Instagram page.
Yep. So I'll provide those in the notes section of the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, and we've got a blog as well, which is on the website, which explains how to make your own products, things for floor, surfaces, anything you can think of. It's all on there. So if people want to go out there and start making their own, that's brilliant. They can go and do that.
Fantastic. And one more question before I let you go today and get on with your holiday. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your holiday, your little road trip, to have a chat with me today. But what does it mean to live well longer?
I think to stay healthy, you need to have a healthy diet, breathe fresh air, exercise, and cut out the toxins in your life. I mean, you can't be an angel, I know. We all come into toxins every day and we can't quit everything, but just try and be mindful and live the best life you can without the toxins.
Great advice. Thanks so much, Amanda.
It's a pleasure.
Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to learn more about biohacking, go ahead and sign up on my website at www.biohack-her.com to get a free copy of my 5 top biohacks to get you kick-started. While you're there, you can also check out my blog page for more tips on biohacking. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. Let us know if there's anyone you'd like us to talk to in particular, and we'll endeavour to get them on the podcast. Until next time, remember to live well longer.